she thought I should have dissociated myself from the government. Dissociated myself from the government. I'm running on a Labour Party platform. There's the PDP government in place, and we are planning to remove them. And I've told the world what I'm going to do differently. So I think for now that should be sufficient. The environment issues he brought in, maybe as a way of implying that was commissioner for environment and the place is dirty. When you become a commissioner, you are given your mandate. You are clearly itemized. What is your mandate as commissioner? When I was commissioner for environment, and even now, the function of the commissioner for environment does not include waste disposal. There's a body created by law, NSWAMA. NSWAMA is the body charged by law in Enugu State to evacuate waste, to manage waste. When I become governor, I'm going to reinvigorate. Because what happens now is that even NSWAMA, that is charged by law and has the necessary mechanisms within its enclosure, for instance, the vehicles, institutional memory in terms of personnel, NSWAMA is being sidelined in Enugu State. The management of waste, the evacuation of waste, disposal of waste in Enugu State is controlled directly from government house by the chief of staff, the office of chief of staff, Mr. Festus Susan, and he does that in conjunction with about 8 other persons. One of them is Honorable Nwonye, Tony Nwonye, and a few other persons. One of them, I cannot remember their names down. There are people who manage the evacuation of waste in Enugu. The payment is made directly from government house, and I can say clearly that no commissioner for environment before me has been charged with managing waste. So when I become governor, I'm going to make sure that SWAMA is properly reinvigorated, because that is where the institutional memory, that is where the knowledge, that is where the capacity to evacuate waste inheres. There are several vehicles parked there. They're not being used. Some of them are damaged, just needing minor repair. So, but they're not put in use. So the personnel that is trained to evacuate waste is abound in Enugu State, but they're not being used. The machines that were purchased purposely to evacuate waste in Enugu State are not being used. So I'm going to, as a first step, reinvigorate SWAMA. I am also going to make sure that the right personnel are put in place. When Mrs. Anajemba, for instance, was appointed the head of SWAMA in Enugu State, there was universal uproar, in the sense that, and rightly so, because she had no track record of performance in that industry. She was a notable hotelier, but that hotelier business does not translate to expertise in environmental management. So I'm going to look for the right person to head the SWAMA agency and charge them with the responsibility of immediately making Enugu State look neat again. Under Sullivan, Enugu State looked neat because the right personnel were deployed, and the governor himself was minded about the neatness of the place and gave marching orders. And also, some regulations were put in place with regards to environmental waste management. One of which is that timing. There must be a time which all waste should be brought together, and within that time they will be evacuated. Now, this time, that one does not operate again, and people bring in willy-nilly. We're also going to respond proactively to the expansion of Enugu, because once those problems began all over Nigeria, especially insecurity, there was a large movement, planned movement, you say, into Enugu urban. And so the evacuation, the waste that was being generated outstripped the capacity of government to evacuate those wastes. And then the major landmine, or what the major place of deposit for the proper phrase has escaped my mind now. But the major place where waste were disposed in Enugu, just one place in Obia, in a Enugu South area, government converted it to a residential place. And so there's no place for disposal of waste in Enugu State. And then that's what has also created a problem, because every waste in Enugu urban were channeled to the Onyama Road area, the Federal Express, and also those things were banned. The international situation in regards to environmental to waste disposal does not accept that waste should be burnt. It's dangerous. Dangerous acids in the process put out into the atmosphere, and it has created a permanent gloom around that area. When I was commissioner for local government, I sensed there was a need to decentralize waste management. I quickly moved to create a bylaw. I got the Ministry of Justice to create a bylaw that decentralized waste management, that made waste management the responsibility of local councils. But that idea did not receive the approval of the governor. When I was commissioner for environment, I know that I went to the governor and complained about the nature of the deteriorating nature of our environment. And the governor told me that his emphasis was on rural roads. That rather that he would prefer to put more money on rural roads than on environmental and waste management. So when I become governor, I'm going to focus with like a laser beam on immediate evacuation of waste in Enugu State. We're also going to locate land sites, they call it, where those wastes will be evacuated. We're also going to accelerate the training of residents to isolate waste, because everything is just dumped into one carton. Bottles, broken bottles, plastics, papers, everything that should be disaggregated in Enugu State, even in Nigeria, are dumped into one pattern. So it makes the segregation of waste difficult. It makes waste recycling difficult. We're also going to have waste officers who are responsible for sanitation. Immediately after the war, there were sanitary officers who go around making sure that everything is prim and proper. We're also going to create waste sanitation courts, make them mobile. When I was commissioner for environment, I revived the environmental court in Enugu State, only one within the Ministry of Environment, to address issues of nuisance mainly. But we are going to have mobile courts, mobile sanitation courts, to make sure that persons who abuse the environment, who drop things from vehicles, from moving kepe. If you live in Enugu or move around, you see persons who, after eating their takeaway foods in their kake, gleefully, casually drop the waste on the main road. Nobody stops them. Nobody punishes them. Maybe they don't even know that what they are doing is not right, because the urban space it becomes home to even those who inhabit the 19th century and those who inhabit the 21st century in terms of attitudes and values. So, which means that orientation and reorientation, and information and teaching on radio and using other media should become a veritable source of waste management. People must know that we don't have to live like animals. You must not live like animals. The idea of people even keeping the environment clean must come back, and this will have to do by putting out several sanitation officers or environmental health officers to go around and make sure that people keep their places clean. And when these wastes are assembled, there must be places where they are dumped. And those places where they are dumped can also be a veritable source for this appropriation of several materials that should be recycled. When I was commissioner for environment, I encouraged waste packers. I encouraged young boys to set up waste recycling businesses, and some of them is thriving. One of them is located in ShopRite area. I encouraged them, supported them. I also encouraged the Association of Waste Packers. But the thing is that even in Enugu State here, there is no big place where waste are recycled. Everything is packed and taken to Lagos. So I'm going to encourage our young people. I'm going to encourage our entrepreneurs to come home to Enugu and establish waste recycling businesses. I'll support them with infrastructure. I'll support them with land. I'll support them with necessary facilities to make sure that several recycling businesses thrive. I'm also going to decentralize waste management, waste collection and waste management in Enugu State, so that local governments are charged with responsibility. Really, waste management is a function of the local government by constitution, and the states appropriate them, maybe because of monetary reasons. So she also asked about women empowerment. I'm fully conscious of the women issue. both as a journalist and a scholar of women engagement, women involvement over history. The Beijing, position of women, the what the law says about gender equity in Nigeria. As a scholar of public human rights international law, I'm also minded that women are a veritable women must be carried along for society to be fully functional. Women are also sources, even in philosophy and in religion and in biology. Women are necessary and vital. I respect women. I adore them, and we're going to make sure that they are accommodated, even as regards within what the law says. The law gives a specific number percentage of women that can be what they should be, what they should have in government. My government will look at the laws and be compliant with what the law says, and even go beyond. But the tune is not really to focus on women. If you create a good society, everybody will thrive. They will survive. If you create hospitals that are nice, that are okay, women will also thrive. So we're going to create an environment where people are allowed to attain their potentialities. We're also going to look at what the law says, what the international conventions say, what the national laws say, what the local laws say about the place of women, about the place of youth, about the place of young girls in every situation, and apply them
Senator, how many
accordingly.
percentage of women, you're on a recorded space, how many percentage of women would you be giving would you be giving positions in your cabinet, and how many percentage of youth, putting youth at an age between 35 downwards to about 2021? Can you commit
What
to an
I'm going to
answer
do,
here?
what I'm going to do, I promise you, is to look at what the law says. I don't have exactly the percentage in my head, but I'll be guided by what the law says. There are laws on what percentage of women should be accommodated at any point in time. I don't have it in my head, but I'll be guided by what the laws passed by our parliament, both at Abuja and maybe in Enugu. I'll be guided and I'll follow it religiously. And also try to support what the law says. So if you just do what the law says, it means you are just being minimalistic. But I appreciate that women are a strong breed. I appreciate the role of
Excuse
women
me,
as
sir. I
mobilized.
can help you with what the law says. Um,
Yeah,
can you hear me? A quick Google search will show you
yeah,
that the court ordered the Nigerian government in April 6th of 2022, under the affirmative
yes,
action, to implement the
yes,
national gender policy, which provides for the allocation of 35% of all appointments to women. A federal high court in Abuja said this, and they ordered the federal government to enforce the national gender policy by allotting 35% of appointments in the public sector to women. All right. So you're already at least at 35%. Do you approve of that? Yes or no?